Welcome back. Let's talk Eskom now. Now, energy experts say that it's too early to celebrate the completion of Unit 1 of the Medupi Power Station Project near Lephalale in Limpopo. Power utility Eskom announced that the unit is finally operational after 14 years. It will, however, only reliably deliver power to the national grid at full capacity in another 2 years. And Eskom says it is yet to conclude technical solutions related to the boiler design defects. So for more on this story, we join on the line by mining and energy expert Ted Blom. Ted, good morning and welcome to Morning Live once more.
Hi, good morning to you.
So according to Eskom, the capital cost of the project is 122 billion rand so far, but the entity expects to spend around 135 billion rand on completion in total. So let's just go back to the beginning, looking at the initial estimated cost for this project.
Okay. So when this project was mooted, I was actually consulting at Eskom, and the tender document that I saw was 34 billion. And that was before corruption set in, and that was before the Chancellor House was given a chance to compete or participate in that cake. And that was before the Eskom board added a whole lot of paraphernalia, which rocketed the cost to double that to 70 odd billion rand. It was the number that was approved by the board. I don't know where Eskom comes with this cost of 130 odd billion, because they've previously divulged that they've spent over 230 billion. So it seems to me they're slicing and dicing the cost and not attributing all the cost to Medupi. On top of that, what isn't in the cost is the 80 billion odd that is going to cost Eskom to fit the scrubbers, which are part and parcel of the World Bank finance package. And there's been no mention of the scrubbers by Eskom for about 10 years now, but so they are polluting the area around Lephalale at a rate of knots. In fact, Medupi is probably the largest, most polluting power station in the world today, without the scrubbers.
But that was not supposed to be the case. Was this not supposed to be a cleaner energy and better than anything else that we currently have?
Absolutely. So this is the first time on the African continent that they've deployed supercritical boilers. And that's where the problem started, because this is the first time Eskom was involved with that technology. It is the latest technology. It's been around for about 20 years, but for Africa, it's the latest technology. And Eskom didn't have any experience. So they tried to take shortcuts everywhere, and more so after they started running late and over budget, and the corruption set in, and as a result, 5 of the 6 boilers are defective. They cannot produce at the rated output. In fact, if I can take you through back to June the 2nd this year, when Eskom announced level 2 load shedding, and I called it level 6 load shedding, because I've got the actual numbers. Medupi and Kusile both were operating at less than 50% capacity. In other words, they couldn't generate half of the power that they were supposed to be generating. In other words, instead of 4,800 megawatts, they were only pumping out about 2,500 megawatts each. So there are major technical problems with these 2 power stations. And for Eskom to celebrate the completion of this power station is preposterous, to put it mildly.
Okay, let's just speak to this once more, because the whole issue of clean energy and moving to greener energy sources is a big deal at the moment. So the power station says this is a supercritical plant, which technically means it burns cleaner than ordinary power plants. And also, if attaining commercial operation status is supposed to mean that it complies with all safety, legal and statutory requirements. And you saying it doesn't at this point?
Absolutely not. And I'm quite happy to debate this issue with Eskom, especially with their leadership, who are new in the game and don't actually quite understand what's going on most of the time. The fact of the matter is this power station is supposed to be fitted with scrubbers, air scrubbers or electrostatical scrubbers that are fitted on top of the chimneys to take out all the solid emissions so that the emissions are reduced and comply with global standards for emissions of power stations. Those are not fitted. They were supposed to be built during construction. Eskom at the time, and they've had 14 years to fit them. It's not as if they were short of time. They elected to retrofit these after the commissioning of the power station. And that just basically means that for each of the chimneys, they'll have to take the units that feed into that chimney, so half the power station, offline while they fit these scrubbers. And my estimate is it'll take at least 6 months to fit each of the scrubbers. And it has to be at least 2 scrubbers to comply with World Bank requirements, as Eskom undertook at the time. And it would be a disaster for Eskom to breach World Bank finance conditions, because the first ones who want to borrow more money from the World Bank. So I think it's time for South Africans to call Eskom to order. They are polluting the environment. They've already done so in Mpumalanga at great cost to lives, and they're busy doing exactly the same thing at Lephalale, an area that was pristine before this power station started pumping pollution into the air.
So, quite apart from that issue that affects the environment adversely, we're also talking to the cost to the South African taxpayer, because this isn't a good return on investment, no matter how you look at it. You speak about the World Bank, the loan that we took out from the World Bank, and from what you say, the tender documents you saw when you were consulting, we are told that the initial budget for this particular project at Medupi was 56 billion rand. So we know at this point that we are already over 250 billion rand. As you say, those amounts move around, chop and change all the time. But there seems to be a bit of consensus by those watching the numbers that we're looking at around 250 odd billion rand at this stage, which is more than 200 billion of what was initially budgeted. So let's talk to what caused all of these delays, because this was supposed to have been completed in 2014, and it started, of course, the build on this in 2007. It was meant to be completed in 2014. It is now 14 years later, and it's only now that we are told it's complete, but it's not entirely complete. So what caused the delays? What went wrong here?
Okay, and this is a very sore point for South Africans, because we always used to believe that we are the masters of power station construction worldwide, and Eskom has had lots of world firsts in its 100-odd-year history. So let me just give you a comparison. At the same time, in India, there was the Mundra power station. It was built by a consortium of South Africans and Tata Power. It started at the same time as Medupi. It was completed in 2012. It was completed for 35 billion rand, the equivalent of money of the day. It actually ran on South African coal, and was designed to do that. It could also burn Indonesian coal, but the on-grid power cost was 48 cents a kilowatt hour, which is less than a quarter of what Medupi's cost on-grid cost is. And for Medupi, for the cost of Medupi, we could have gotten more than 10 power stations, and then we wouldn't have had an energy problem. And the same for Kusile, because Kusile is running parallel to Medupi. And in fact, I wish the Zondo Commission would come clean, because there was no tender for Kusile. And they've asked to speak to me a number of times, and they keep on ducking and diving. Just when I'm ready, and I ask them for a slot and some assistance to get the legal documents ready, they disappear on me. So I think this is one of the biggest examples of state capture in the history of this country. It's time that the Zondo Commission put some attention to this matter.
So, and I would imagine you have been watching the Zondo Commission, quite a lot of Eskom evidence led at the Commission. What have you made of that?
Well, I think it just proves that there was state capture at a gross. You and I can't capture the state. It's not possible. We're not the political powers. So the state capture happened by political parties taking a leading role in unjust slice of the action from procurement by the government. And the Chancellor House example of 2007 was a gross example of state capture. The signing of the Dover coal agreement less than 60 days ago by the CEO of Eskom at more than double the price that it was the day before is another example of state capture, because the ANC, through the Tebe Investments and Botha Trust, are the beneficiaries of that double coal price, which you and I as South Africans are paying for. And if you follow the links, or as one minister said, if you follow the dots, with Medupi and Kusile, there's a clear trail of perpetrators of crime and corruption benefiting from the delays in the power station, the feeding schemes in the power station, the procurement channels of that power station, etc., etc. So, I mean, for Mr. Zondo not to have a clear run and full and forensic investigation as to what happened at Medupi and Kusile and Ngula, for that matter, because Ngula was also tainted by gross corruption. It went from 9 billion to 40-odd billion. I mean, it's just preposterous. And we're not getting a value for our money from the Zondo Commission to the extent that they ignore the gross corruption and state capture that took place at Medupi and Kusile.
And with regard to the contractors who were responsible for the construction of these facilities, is there anything that we should be concerned about regarding their role?
Well, yes and no. I mean, let me give you an example. I'm very close to one of the quantity surveyors that was involved with Medupi, and there were a number of things that really would, if it wasn't so serious and that we were paying for it, would be laughable. I mean, one was the question of the wood that was fitted on the counter of the security office at Medupi. They wanted, I mean, I'm going to use an example. They wanted beechwood and they were given rosewood. And they were made to strip all the wood out of the security reception area and replace it with the correct wood. They wanted a double glazed glass. For what reason, I'm not sure. But anyway, so all the glass had to be removed and replaced at great cost. The control room of the staves that feed coal into the boilers, the cabling for that for the staves control room was changed 20 times. 20 times, every time at great cost. And the final design and agreed installation was exactly the same as what the first proposal was. So there was just rampant wastage of money. And at that time, for more than 3 years, that contractor had to keep 400 workers on the payroll day in and day out while they were waiting and not working, waiting for Eskom to make up its mind as to where the control cables would be, whether it be over the top of the control room, underneath, amongst the foundations, along the left side, the right side. You can't believe the incompetence that was taking place at that station. On top of that, I mean, I have firm reason to believe applications that Eskom is now talking about. I've got engineers on the ground who told me that it's a shortcut to cut and paste and patch the boilers, that it won't last 50 years. In fact, that by doing what they are doing, they are increasing the stress on the boilers beyond what the specifications were, and that we will see the problem surfacing within 5 years. And the same goes for Kusile. Kusile has been fed with substandard Gupta coal and similar to the Gupta's coal. It's standard practice in Eskom to buy coal through the back door, it seems to me, and the CEOs admitted that he can't seem to sort that problem out, nor the costing of coal out. And the result is that the boilers at Kusile have been compromised. They have wasted half their life in the less than 10 years that they've run because of substandard coal rock and all sorts of rubbish that's been fed into those boilers. So I think there's more than ample scope for a proper investigation of inquiry into this thing. And I can bring my sources of the information, and we can have a fact fight about who did what wrong, instead of bloating about and gloating about things that are actually just not true.
Okay, so we know we're still going to spend more billions to bring this thing completely up to speed. And again, the return on investment for the country. So you have the design defects, which obviously have still not been completely sorted out with the boilers, as you say. We're told that the lifespan of this plant is 50 years. So is that 50 years from completion, like now, yesterday when we told it's complete? Does the 50 years start now, or is it minus the time, the 14 years that we've already? How do we calculate all of this?
Okay, notionally, and this is a grey area. Notionally, the life or the clock starts ticking when a unit is commissioned, commercially commissioned, like Unit 6 was, Unit 1, the 6th unit. Because what Eskom also hasn't told you is that the reason they built this thing back to front is that they hadn't done proper geotechnical work as preparatory work for this power station. So when they came to put in Unit 1, they found that they couldn't lay the foundations because of substandard work that was done prior to the foundations. So, but normally the clock starts ticking with commercial operations. So this power station, the clock starts ticking yesterday, but for other purposes, for warranty purposes, etc., the clock starts ticking on the date that that unit, and some of the units have been in commission for 2 years or so. So the clock, the warranty conditions started 2 years ago. But I don't think there will be warranties for Medupi. It's another area that Eskom is not revealing to us, because a lot of the design defects were Eskom induced. They didn't buy a power station off the shelf, as what Medupi Mundra did in India. They said, no, we wanted, just to be facetious about it, they wanted pink handles on the rails instead of the normal grey handles. And they wanted this customized article here. And that's what chased up the cost. It's an old story in engineering that the moment you start messing with the scope, the price of that particular unit doubles, at least. And that's where the engineering and suppliers all make a hang of a lot of surplus profit. So yes, when will Medupi be finished? Well, if it doesn't sort out its environmental problems, I don't think it will last 10 years.
Wow, after all that money spent. And just finally, Ted, the last time you were on the show, we spoke about the South 32 contract with Eskom and National Treasury's concern around that contract, Treasury urging Eskom to find cheaper coal. And at the time, you said you were going to open a case on the basis of the information that you had. Any updates on that?
Okay, so Mr. Varvey, if you remember, was on the show with me at that stage. And subsequent to that, Mr. Varvey was stuffed to. And NUM, the National Union of Mine Workers, lodged a case. I helped with the preparation of that, but they are the main interested party. So you've got to have locus in the court of law. They both have locus because they have representatives that are affected by this whole doubling of the coal price by the chief executive of Eskom in favor of the ANC's Tabo Bata Trust and Tebe Investments. That case has been lodged with the Sandton Police Station. It was televised, and in fact, there's been follow-up to that in that the police have asked for more assistance, which has been sent to them. And at the same time, the documents have also been forwarded to the SIU, who to this date have received the documents, but they've been pretty silent. I'm expecting some noise from them after the show.
Well, Ted, you know what? Let us know whatever noise comes your way. But thanks so much for your time, as always. Mining and energy expert Ted Blom on Eskom's Medupi project, following Eskom's announcement yesterday that the project had been completed. But as you heard there, seems not quite. We are still going to spend a few billions, and there are still some serious problems, it would seem, with some defects in the build there. So that's where we're going to leave that one.